sometimes that time is the biggest hindrance for people. They think if I'm going to have a movement practice, it needs to look like this or has to be for an hour. And the body really responds to physics. It's like Newton's law. Things at rest want to stay at rest, and then things in motion want to stay in motion. And you have to just provide a stimulus to get it going. You don't have to be a physical therapist to understand these things. In my teacher training, I go through it and people come out, whether they've been scared about learning anatomy or resistant to it, and they end up loving it. We want to feel at home in our bodies, and the best way to do that, whether you're teaching or practicing it, is understanding it.
This is Vibe Science, a top 100 wellness podcast presented by the Radcast Network, breaking wellness barriers and making health truly personal. Here's your host, Ryan Alford.
Hello, and welcome to Vibe Science. Special edition here because I got Chris Hansen in the studio. What's up, Chris?
What's up, brother?
Hey,
Good
man.
to be here.
Mind, body, and energy. I'm just feeling the energy in the room.
We got a good vibe going.
I know.
About to get even better.
Hey, I'm ready to get lit. That's what I'm talking about. I'm kind of already lit, but I'm
my
really
favorite.
ready to get ready. I got Lara Heimann. She is the founder of Lit Yoga. What's up, Lit?
Yeah, I love it. I should just be called Lit now. Thank you.
I know, Lit Laura. That's
Lit
what I'm
Laura.
telling you. I give pet names to all my guests. I think like that. That's just what I do. I'm a marketer.
Yeah.
And so
I'm
I like.
Lit Laura. I want everybody to feel lit up. So when they see me, when they move with me, I love it. Lit Laura. Thank you so much for having me, Ryan, Chris.
Yeah, we're excited. I mean, it's all about movement, right? But Chris and I had this exact conversation on the ride over this morning, talking about like just getting it in, like 20 minutes, like movement, like, we're talking about resistance training, but just getting the body moving in some way. I know that's part of your philosophy, right?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes that time is the biggest kind of hindrance for people. They think if I'm going to have a movement practice, it needs to look like this or has to be for an hour. And, the body really responds to physics. It's like Newton's law. Things at rest want to stay at rest, and then things in motion want to stay in motion. And you have to just provide a stimulus to get it going. So you can have your own dialogue or negotiation and just say, let's just get on the mat or get at the gym or whatever it is, and um, give myself 20 minutes. And often what people find is once they get moving, all the beautiful things that happen with movement in every system of our body makes us feel lit up, and we want to keep doing it. But it's that initial drag to get it. And that's why when you do it regularly, it's really encoded. We have that feedback loop, and we know even on our days where we feel sluggish, we already know the outcome of movement. It's been, wired in us, baked in us. So we just show up anyway.
Laura, I'd like to take today to maybe break the stigma of yoga a little bit. Even for myself, I'm a big guy. So they say, I mean, I'm 6'5", 270. So
yeah.
a big dude.
It's a big boy.
Yoga and me are like oil and water. It's like, and I'm athletic. I'm just not that and I work out 5 days a week. I'm in decent shape for my age, but man, I've fought the yoga thing. I'm drawn to what I know it would do well for me, but I don't know. How do we break that stigma?
I understand that so much, Ryan. And that is something from a marketing standpoint we really struggle with, because our style of yoga is not what you would picture, what you're probably envisioning about yoga. Lots of bendy type of things. That's where I brought my physical therapy and my neuroscience background and looked at the way yoga was being practiced and realized it wasn't as inclusive as it was really purporting to be, wanting to be. And that's why so many women were drawn to it, and many men shied away from it because they had this thing like, I can't even bend over and touch my toes. But yoga really, the stigma to break is the idea that it looks a certain way. All yoga really is, in this mass umbrella, is the invitation to raise awareness and consciousness. And there's no better way to do that than through the vehicle of your body. The sensations when you're lifting weights, when you're running, when you're biking. You are really tuned in, or we hope that's what you're tuned in. And yoga is just asking you to do that to the like nth degree so that you're paying attention and truly embodied. Embodied just means that you're in the present moment, really, because our body is always present, our mind is rarely present. And so it's a way of using what is already, we already know to be true, that our body is present. Why don't we go in through the body and pay more attention? So, what I would say is pick a yoga class or pick a, like, do lit, for instance. I'm really proud to say that when I had a studio, 20% of our clientele were men, which is it's usually about
Mm.
2% in most. And it's because we brought in so much more of the functional movement, of the priming of the body for the movements. You're not just coming in like from your car and starting to go through big movement patterns. You're really starting, we call it the reset. It has a very specific blueprint. And that was really based on my physical therapy. I worked with very involved, neurologically impaired clients who needed to just repattern movement. They needed to get their motor function back. So we went back to what we all went through in our developmental stages in wiring movement. That's where our brain grew, and that's where our postural muscles, our deep core muscles really became online. So we went from a floppy baby to being bipedal. Well, when we get on the ground, we have so much more support. And for a big guy like you, um, getting on the ground and doing this kind of primer before you start doing bigger movement patterns is setting up your system, your brain, and your joints, and the muscle and fascia, everything involved, to be able to acquire kind of those ranges of motion that might not have originally been available to you.
Chris, I know you you're a yoga guy, right? You do
Do a
yoga.
little yoga, yeah.
A little
Did a little
yoga.
yoga this morning. I put it on Instagram. You can
Okay.
watch on my story.
Yeah. You know to do a downward dog right in the middle of the airport.
Yeah. I don't know about the middle of the airport, but no, yoga. I love this conversation because, I mean, we were talking about this a little bit even earlier, but the male ego with things like yoga, like even I've gotten into Pilates and Reformer this past year. I would have gotten into none of these things if it wasn't for women. Like it was always an invitation from a girl. And now I don't do yoga as much just because I don't get as much of a workout. But the Pilates Reformer, for example, I'm 1 out of 12. I'm the only man in there. And then
Yeah.
there might be, which is funny, there may, and the same as yoga classes, it'll be me and then say like a professional Dolphins football player. And
Yeah.
that's what I think is funny when that sold me. When I see professional athletes, these big dudes
Yeah.
doing this stuff where I think,
Yeah.
these guys have millions of dollars of training facilities, and in the off season they're doing this. That tells me something. Like these guys know their body and mechanics better than I do. So I'm a huge believer, and I actually have talked to some friends with studios in the last 2 weeks saying, how do we get more men to come in? And I think I've never thought, one, the male ego for sure, I know, but two, the part I didn't think is what you said is just the mobility aspect. We want to try, and if we're not good, we say, well, fuck this. I'm going to go back to doing squats. You know, people, men in general, we don't like the weak phase before you gain the strength and get strong.
Mm.
We need the patience to get
It's
through
humbling. And I think
Yeah.
I always tell people embrace that. I
Yeah.
work with professional athletes, and the moves that we do are, again, I think you would really like it. I think you would find it incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
And when I created this method, I was like, I want to have the most efficient movement experience possible. And that would be, I want to include mobility in many directions, many planes, lots of getting up and down, getting on my hands, inverting, um, getting on my hands, strengthening the shoulder girdle in different ways, 2 hands, 1 hand, all kinds of things. And I wanted to raise my heart rate. I didn't want to have to do yoga and then feel like, okay, now I got to go for a run, because, that's 2 hours of your day and most people don't have that. And then I wanted the mental, just the mental cleansing that it automatically gives you too. So, and it's to your point, like working with athletes, they they do enjoy that humbling thing because they have so much, usually success in other ways. So it's actually nice. But for just a person who's not a professional athlete, they don't necessarily like the humbling. They want to feel, most of us want to feel successful at what we're doing. You don't have to be a physical therapist to understand these things. And so in my teacher training, I go through it and people come out, whether they've been scared about learning anatomy or, resistant to it, and they end up loving it. And that's the thing, is that we want to feel at home in our bodies. And the best way to do that, whether you're teaching or practicing it, is understanding it. And that's really the magic, is like, how do we age well? Well, we age well by moving well.
Every new year, it's like everyone's trying to completely reinvent their fitness routine overnight. And that's usually why it doesn't stick. For me, it's always been about keeping things simple and sustainable. That's why I've been using Fitbod. I like that I don't have to overthink my workouts anymore. I open the app, it already knows what I trained last, what needs recovery, how much time I have, and what equipment I'm working out with. It just builds the workout for me. No planning, no guesswork. Regardless of what gym equipment I have around me, Fitbod adjusts on the fly. The workouts are challenging but smart. I'm not overly sore, I'm not bored, and I'm way more consistent than I used to be. If your goal this year is just to work out more consistently with no burnout, Fitbod makes that way easier. Level up your workout in the new year. Join Fitbod today and get your personalized workout plan. Get 25% off your subscription or try the app free for 7 days at fitbod.me/vibe. That's fitbod.me/vibe. Lara, what informed your approach? I mean, I've heard, the neuro part of it, different things. I guess we could start from the beginning. You obviously have a lot of history here, but what formed sort of the lit approach with talking with lit Laura here about yoga?
Well, I think having taught and practiced a more traditional vinyasa style was important, because that was like, I like many others was like, okay, yoga is this kind of codified, practice, and it's not meant to be changed. It's blah, blah, blah. So I practiced that way. And then by day, I was, had my physical therapy hat on. And what I started to notice is when I started to bring more of my physical therapy lens into observing people when I was teaching them, it was that you're benefiting from movement, period, right? So whether or not they were, in, in encoding or practicing with any kind of biomechanical awareness, it still feels good to move. But what I was noticing is people were coming in, like having maybe 8 hours at a desk, driving there, and they're coming in with their existing posture and energy. And while that, is molded and remolded a little bit in the practice, the wiring is still there. So in other words, if you're in a rounded position during the day, and then you come to yoga and I say lift your arms up, you're going to do that automatically from the place that's the easiest to do it from. So, and then usually, especially with men, but women too, will move a lot from their rib cage. So to get that shoulder flexion, so they're doing it. They're actually executing the movements, but they're not doing it they're doing it in their just habitual way. So I started noticing that. And then I was working with my stroke patients and doing all this stuff on the ground. And they were making incredible gains, from the weight bearing, from this rewiring of the movement habits. And I just started to wonder, like, well, if they're making such great strides, what would it be like, here I am able-bodied, if I started just to do this a little bit prior to that movement and see what would happen? So I started doing that in my own practice, and within a month, my practice changed. It was more balanced, it was stronger, I was really accessing those deeper stabilizing muscles because I primed them and prepared them. And it's not just the muscles, but it's the brain's connection to them. So the brain-body connection, we talk about mind-body connection. The brain-body connection is essential. And so that's really where I saw, like, here's a gap. People they're coming and moving, but they're not taking away better movement habits. They're just reinforcing their existing movement habits. So if we just simply kind of rearranged the configuration of this codification, what would that look like? So I started teaching it, and people would say this. I mean, at the time, it was so strange to start on the ground. Like now, many more people are doing that. But this was over 15 years ago, and starting on the ground, doing some bridge work, doing some core work, doing some work on the hands, quadruped, and, with one arm, and going into dolphin, which is on your forearms like a down dog to really stimulate the shoulder girdle, to prepare it. And all of that changed people's practice. And they were just like, everybody should be doing this. And that's where I started to think maybe I need to share this in a bigger way.
Laura, what's happening when we stretch, the stretching that happens in yoga? Like, talk to me like the physiology of that a little bit. Let's dork out a little bit, because I know what it feels like, and I know having more movement that comes with those stretches. But maybe give me a little, I don't know, science on that.
Sure. And this is another way I'm different is like I don't I don't do kind of static long stretches. I don't do stretches where you're on the ground much at all because it's not really functional. You don't have a
Yep.
base of support. And that is very different from like traditional yoga. Like the last 20 minutes you're on the ground doing all these forward folds. And I was like, this is kind of dumb. So, it's critical thinking. So when you're stretching, I mean, stretching, so to me, dynamic stretching is the best. And that's really what we're doing when we're moving. And it's just the stretching component comes when your biomechanics are sound. So to stretching is basically you have two bones that come together. That's a joint, and they're moving, and then the tissues around them move with that, allow that movement, or they don't allow that movement, and that's when it feels like you're tight. So you first need to go like, well, how do I move the joint better, and so that the tissues surrounding it have more suppleness and freedom. And the physiology is that when you load something, so that's why I want to do most of these standing or weight bearing, because I'm getting this ground reaction force from the floor through my bones and tissues. And that automatically creates this energy, this charge. And that charge can be used to help the tissues stretch more. So a passive stretch, you're not doing that as much, especially if you're on the ground. But if you're pulling on the tissue with some dynamic movement that is getting you into a deeper range, not necessarily in range, you're mobilizing the joint, you're pulling on that tissue, and that tissue starts to, in a balanced way, starts to get heated and get some of that charge from the floor. And then it starts to become more pliable. It becomes more hydrated. Movement hydrates everything. It hydrates our joints, the synovial joints, but also hydrates that surrounding tissue, which is the fascia. Now, fascia is connective tissue. And if you think of like a mummy, it's wrapping everything. It wraps around our muscles, our bones, our soft tissues like our ligaments, and the joint capsule. It wraps around our organs. It's what's holding us together, essentially. So what we're
The
really
glue.
Yeah, it's the glue. What we're really stretching is that fascia. And fascia at that physiological level, it responds to a stretch when you have a stabilizing force and then you have some kind of pull on that stabilizing force. If you think about somebody, if we were playing tug of war, I can produce force if you're pulling against me. But if I just pull on it and you don't pull against, there's no stabilizing force, and that wouldn't change. So it's the elastic component of our soft tissue, including the connective tissue and fascia, that can get more stretch as long as we have a stabilizing force. And that's why the biomechanics are sound. So if you collapse into a joint, you're going to feel things stretching. If I fold it over and I had my legs straight out in front of me sitting on the ground, I'm going to feel my back fascia and it will get a stretch. And that can be really satisfying, but that's temporary. It doesn't create a lasting change in that connective tissue. And that's a lot to do with the nervous system. The nervous system is saying, hey, you're getting to an in range. Hey, you're getting to a stretch. So what we're really doing is both biomechanical, physiological, but also all of that is dictated in the nervous system. And as we start to move, our nervous system starts to feel safer because we have a stabilizing counterforce, and then it allows more of that stretch to occur. Does that make sense? And that
It
becomes
does.
that stays with you versus that temporary relief that you feel when you just do like a long static stretch without a countering stabilizing force.
I put it this way. Yoga almost allows those voices to get louder for me to have the conversation to fight back. It's like same as the gym. You have to put yourself in uncomfortability to even have that, oh, you should give up. No, dude, keep putting. Oh. And it's like, and I know Huberman's talked about this with whatever part of our brain, right? When you do hard stuff, it gets stronger. I look at it the same with this. It's like getting over that hump. It's that mental brain exercise equal to physical.
Yeah.
That I might not get if I'm throwing up dumbbells with Ryan and we're like, yeah, dude, look how my veins look huge right now.
Right. I mean, they serve different purposes, right? But at the end of the day, to really alter our nervous system in the way that we operate in the world, we have to tune in. We have to recognize our patterns, and so we can change our movement patterns, but we can also change the way we speak to ourselves, the way we speak to others, the resilience that we all need. It's beautiful, and that's why I am so lit up about it. I'm really I've been doing this for 30 years, and I wake up every day, and I feel I'm so excited to share it and to practice it myself because I know how much it just improves life's existence.
Lit Lara, where can everybody learn more about what you're doing, the practice and everything?
The best way to go to find more is go to our website. It's lityoga.com, and there's all kinds of information. There's a blog on there with a lot of great, we have a PT corner, so we talk about all kinds of ways to avoid injury, or if you have an injury, do this, or there's also spiritual stuff in there. We have a podcast. It's called Redefining Movement. And then the online platform there's a link I'm going to share with you. You can probably put it in your show notes for everybody that's listening that wants to give this a try. I'm offering you a special deal, 5 weeks for $5. And the code is Move Better. And I would just recommend, coming on, and it's called the Lit Daily. It's very robust, has so much content. We have a toggle at the top that's beginner, intermediate, advanced. Don't look at that as a label of you. Look at it as a understanding of what to expect in that class. So beginner is going to be going a little bit slower, and it's really good to do if this is new because you need that time to process. When something feels too fast, it's not fast for the sake of fast. It's the coordination that you develop that you can move with, more agility. And, but it's, so start wherever you feel like. We send you emails with lots of recommendations of like how to get started. We have a Start Here series. We have a Lit Launchpad series. Those are all great ways to kind of get to know this methodology.
Love it. Appreciate the offer. We'll have that in the show notes. And hey, I want to get lit.
Stay lit. Get lit.
All right. I'm holding you to it.
Awesome, Lara. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge and wisdom with our audience. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan, Chris. This is such a pleasure.
Thanks, Lara.
Hey, guys, you know where to find us, vibescience.com. You can find links to all the podcasts, all the highlight clips, links to Lara's generous offer. It's lit. Chris, final words today.
I already said it, everybody. Get lit, stay lit with Lit Lara.
We're always taking you to your highest vibes here. It's mind, body, energy. We'll see you next time on Vibe Science.
The content discussed on this show is provided for reference and educational purposes. The content is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice. Always consult your personal physician for medical advice and proper diagnosis.
Thanks for listening. This is Vibe Science. To learn more or watch full episodes, visit vibesciencepodcast.com. Here's to discovering your highest vibe.